I have always believed that the starting point of all achievement is desire. Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe it can achieve. The moment I learned this truth, my entire life changed. I understood that to reach any summit, I must first burn with an intense desire that cannot be shaken. I remember thinking that definiteness of purpose is the foundation of success. And I set my mind on a single objective: to master the principles of wealth, influence, and personal achievement. I observed that every successful man I studied shared one quality: they all acted with persistence and faith. They did not wait for luck or circumstance, they created their own opportunity. I learned that temporary defeat must never discourage action. The man who persists beyond failure is the one who ultimately succeeds. I embraced this principle in my own life, and every setback became a lesson, a stepping stone, a chance to refine my strategy and strengthen my resolve. I discovered that faith is a state of mind which may be induced by affirmation or repeated instructions to the subconscious mind. You must believe in yourself and in the attainability of your purpose. You must convince yourself daily that you can achieve whatever you set your mind upon. I practiced affirmations. I repeated them every morning, and every night I impressed upon my subconscious mind the image of success, until doubt, fear, and hesitation could no longer find a place in my thoughts. I realized that the subconscious mind is the connecting link between desire and its realization. It responds to thoughts emotionalized with faith and directed through persistence. I learned to feed it positive thoughts and to guard it against negativity. I observed that the mind becomes what it is fed, and if I desired riches, influence, and mastery, I had to fill my thoughts with faith, desire, and action. I have learned that imagination is the workshop of the mind. Creative imagination brings new ideas. Synthetic imagination reorganizes old ideas into new plans. The mind that imagines persistently shapes reality. I spent hours visualizing my goals. I imagined the steps I would take, the obstacles I would overcome, and the people I would meet. I saw every challenge as an opportunity, and every failure as a lesson to adapt and persist. I understood that desire is not a mere wish, it is a definite burning desire backed by a plan and sustained by faith. This desire is the starting point of all achievement. I remembered my own words from Think and Grow Rich. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. My desire became an obsession. An obsession is the fuel that converts thought into action. I observed that the mastermind principle multiplies power. Two or more minds working in harmony toward a definite purpose create a force greater than the sum of individual effort. I sought out men of experience, integrity, and vision. I formed alliances to share knowledge, to stimulate ideas, and to reinforce faith. I learned that no man can achieve great success alone, and the cooperation of others accelerates the path to mastery. I realized that accurate thinking is a discipline, the ability to distinguish between facts and opinions, to analyze situations, to anticipate consequences, is a skill that separates ordinary men from extraordinary men. I applied this daily. I analyzed opportunities and risks. I discarded baseless assumptions, and I acted decisively on facts. Only through accurate thinking can action produce the desired result. I discovered that persistence is essential. The individual who persists through temporary defeat, who continues to act with faith and desire, builds momentum and accumulates power. Experience grows and knowledge expands. Every time I refused to quit, I grew stronger. I learned that a man who cannot face temporary defeat cannot achieve permanent success. I observed that enthusiasm is a force multiplier. The man who acts with energy and passion inspires cooperation in others and drives action. I cultivated enthusiasm in every thought, in every word, and in every plan. I understood that enthusiasm attracts people and opportunities, and it amplifies persistence and faith. I learned that self-discipline is indispensable. Control over thought, action, emotion, and habit is the foundation of achievement. Without discipline, desire is weak, persistence is intermittent, and faith is unstable. I practiced self-control in every aspect of my life. I made daily decisions to act with purpose, to resist temptation, and to persist in every plan I had conceived. I understood that failure is only temporary when it teaches a lesson and inspires new effort. The most successful men I studied had faced adversity. Yet they persisted, they learned from defeat, they adjusted their plans, and they continued. I followed the same path. I observed my failures carefully. I extracted the lesson, and I acted with renewed determination. I realized that adversity strengthens character and wisdom. Every obstacle is an opportunity to learn. Every challenge carries a lesson that will ensure future success. I trained myself to embrace adversity, to see it as a teacher, not an enemy. I adapted, I persisted, and I converted every setback into a stepping stone toward my definite purpose. I discovered that fear is the greatest obstacle to achievement. Fear of criticism, fear of poverty, fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of old age creates hesitation, indecision, and inaction. I learned to confront fear, to act in spite of it. I cultivated courage, and I persisted regardless of uncertainty. Fear cannot exist where desire, faith, and persistence are strong. I observed that a positive mental attitude attracts opportunity and repels misfortune. The mind that is positive, constructive, and focused creates conditions for achievement. The mind that is negative, fearful, or doubtful repels success. I cultivated optimism, I reinforced faith, I acted decisively, and I persisted in the face of difficulty. I learned that service to others multiplied by faith and persistence produces wealth, influence, and fulfillment. The man who renders more than he expects receives more than he imagines. I applied this principle in every relationship, in every transaction, and in every endeavor. I acted with integrity and generosity. I persisted in delivering value, and opportunity followed naturally. I realized that attachment to outcomes creates suffering. The river flows around obstacles, never resisting, never fighting. It adapts and moves forward. I trained myself to release attachment to what I cannot control. I focused on effort, not outcome. I adapted to circumstances and persisted. I learned that power comes from detachment combined with focused action. I discovered that silence is a weapon and a tool. It commands respect, it conceals thought, and it creates tension and leverage. I practiced speaking only when necessary. I listened more than I spoke. I allowed silence to shift power dynamics in my favor. I learned that the one who speaks less often controls more. I observed that composure under pressure separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. The mind trained to remain calm in adversity acts with precision, strategy, and advantage. I cultivated calmness. I anticipated challenges, I rehearsed responses, and I acted decisively. I understood that unshakable composure creates respect, influence, and advantage. I learned that mental toughness is built daily. The mind grows resilient through resistance, repetition, persistence, and faith. Every challenge is an opportunity to strengthen thought, discipline, and courage. I trained daily. I acted decisively. I persisted, I reinforced faith, I mastered thought, and my mind became unshakable. I realized that self-reliance liberates the mind from dependence on approval. The moment I stopped seeking validation, my power increased, my confidence grew. My mind became free to conceive, believe, and act. I chose myself. I trusted my judgment, I persisted, and I cultivated unwavering self-belief. I discovered that mastery of thought converts desire into reality. Every principle of success, desire, faith, persistence, discipline, imagination, accurate thought, concentration, initiative, service, and positive mental attitude, must be applied daily. The accumulation of these habits produces extraordinary achievement, wealth, influence, and fulfillment. I lived these principles. I acted decisively. I persisted, I believed unwaveringly, and the universe responded. I learned that success is the sum of small efforts repeated daily. The accumulation of thought, action, persistence, and discipline compounded over time produces extraordinary results. I acted every day. I reinforced faith. I persisted. I cultivated positive mental attitude. I concentrated. I applied accurate thinking, and I mastered my destiny. I observed that the mind that conceives and believes can achieve whatever I desired with sufficient faith, persistence, and definite purpose could be attained. I conceived my purpose, I believed in it. I acted consistently. I persisted. I refused to be swayed by temporary defeat, criticism, or doubt, and I achieved it. I have always believed that the individual who refuses to quit, adapts, learns, and persists achieves greatness. Those who surrender to doubt, fear, or frustration never reach their potential. I cultivated persistence. I embraced adversity. I acted decisively. I persisted. I believed, and my belief converted into reality. I have always known that every great achievement begins with thought and action. The starting point of all success is desire. Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe it can achieve. I cultivated desire. I focused it. I refused to let doubt or fear interrupt my purpose. I concentrated my mind on a single objective, and I persisted. I acted daily, and I never wavered. I discovered that the subconscious mind is the connecting link between desire and its realization. It is the medium through which thought is translated into reality. I impressed upon my subconscious mind the images of success. I fed it faith and persistence. I eliminated negative influences, and I repeated affirmations daily. I knew that what the mind repeatedly conceives, believes, and visualizes, it attracts. I observed that the power of autosuggestion is supreme. Repetition of thought and affirmation influences the subconscious mind. I trained myself to repeat positive statements. I visualized my success. I impressed upon my mind that I am capable, worthy, and destined for greatness. I practiced this relentlessly, and my subconscious mind began to work in my favor, providing ideas, opportunities, and courage. I understood that decision is the mastery of procrastination. The person who hesitates loses. The individual who acts decisively wins. I trained myself to make decisions promptly and clearly. I evaluated the facts. I acted. I refused to allow fear of error to paralyze me. I learned that indecision is the enemy of success, and the habit of prompt decision accelerates achievement. I discovered that persistence is the sustained effort necessary to induce faith and convert desire into reality. Without persistence, desire is dead. I developed the habit of persistence. I acted daily. I overcame obstacles. I refused to quit. I understood that every failure and setback was only temporary when it teaches a lesson and inspires renewed effort. I observed that the mastermind principle is the coordination of knowledge and effort between two or more people working toward a definite purpose. There is power in a harmonious alliance. I sought men of integrity, vision, and experience. I shared ideas. I learned from them. I contributed my knowledge. I cultivated trust and cooperation. I discovered that cooperation multiplies power and accelerates achievement. I realized that imagination is the workshop of the mind. Ideas are the beginning points of all fortunes. Through imagination, I created new plans. I visualized solutions. I saw opportunities where others saw obstacles. I used synthetic imagination to organize old concepts into new combinations. And I used creative imagination to generate original ideas that brought success. I discovered that organized planning is the crystallization of desire into action. A plan without action is a dream. I wrote my plans. I acted on them. I tested them. I refined them. I persisted. I understood that a plan may fail temporarily, but it is only a lesson if I adjust and persist. I never abandoned purpose, but improved the method. I understood that accurate thinking is the ability to separate facts from opinions and to analyze and act on truth. Facts are the foundation of success. Opinions are often misleading. I trained myself to observe carefully, to think critically, to question assumptions, and to act decisively. I learned that the quality of thinking determines the quality of results. I realized that self-discipline is the control over thought, action, and habit. Without self-discipline, desire is weak, persistence is intermittent, and faith is unstable. I practice self-control in every area of my life. I refused distractions. I resisted temptation. I acted daily with purpose and focus. I reinforced discipline until it became a natural habit. I discovered that enthusiasm is a catalyst for action. It inspires cooperation, it multiplies effort, and it attracts opportunity. I cultivated enthusiasm in every thought, word, and action. I acted with energy and passion. I encouraged others. I inspired them. And I observed that enthusiasm spreads and multiplies success. I observed that failure is only temporary when it is understood and used as a lesson. The most successful men I studied had failed repeatedly. They analyzed failure, they learned from it, they adjusted and persisted. I did the same. I embraced temporary defeat. I extracted its lesson, I refined my approach, and I acted with renewed determination. I realized that fear is the greatest enemy of success. Fear of criticism, poverty, failure, ill health, old age, and loss creates hesitation and indecision. I confronted fear. I acted in spite of it. I cultivated courage. I persisted. I reinforced faith. I understood that no man can achieve success. Allows fear to dominate thought and action. I discovered that positive mental attitude attracts opportunity and repels misfortune. A mind focused on fear, doubt, or negativity repels success. A mind focused on faith, desire, and constructive action attracts opportunity. I cultivated optimism. I acted decisively. I persisted. I reinforced faith. And I observed that the universe responded to my mental state. I observed that service to others multiplied by faith and persistence produces wealth and fulfillment. The man who renders more than he expects receives more than he imagines. I acted with integrity. I created value. I sought to improve the lives of others, and in return my influence expanded and my success grew. I realized that attachment to outcomes creates suffering. The river flows around obstacles. It adapts and moves forward. I focused on effort, not outcome. I acted persistently. I detached from results. I understood that power is in consistent action combined with faith and patience. I discovered that silence is a tool of power. It conceals thought, it commands respect, and it creates leverage. I practiced speaking only when necessary. I listened carefully. I allowed silence to create tension and influence. I observed that the one who speaks less often controls more. I mastered the art of listening and the power of restraint. I observed that composure under pressure is the mark of the extraordinary. The mind trained to remain calm acts with precision and strategy. I cultivated calmness. I anticipated challenges. I rehearsed responses. I acted decisively. I understood that unshakable composure inspires confidence, influence, and respect. I realized that mental toughness is built daily through repeated resistance and discipline. The mind grows strong by overcoming challenges. I trained myself. I acted consistently. I persisted. I reinforced faith. I mastered thought. I developed courage. I cultivated patience. I trained daily, and I became unshakable. I discovered that self-reliance liberates the mind from dependence on approval. I stopped seeking validation. I trusted my judgment. I acted with confidence. I cultivated unwavering faith in myself. I understood that the opinion that matters most is my own, and I persisted with purpose and clarity. I observed that mastery of thought converts desire into reality. Desire, faith, persistence, discipline, imagination, accurate thought, concentration, initiative, service, and positive mental attitude must be applied daily. I applied them. I acted consistently. I persisted. I refined my methods. I reinforced faith. I observed results. I adjusted, and I acted again. I realized that success is the sum of small efforts repeated daily. Daily effort compounded over time produces extraordinary results. I acted daily. I cultivated faith. I persisted. I maintained a positive mental attitude. I concentrated. I thought accurately. I disciplined myself. I mastered my purpose, and I achieved it. I discovered that the mind that conceives and believes can achieve whatever I desired with sufficient faith, persistence, and definite purpose. I attained. I conceived my purpose. I believed, I acted, I persisted. I refused to quit, I embraced every challenge. And I converted thought into reality. I have always known that the individual who refuses to quit, adapts, learns, and persists achieves greatness. Those who surrender to doubt, fear, or frustration never reach their potential. I cultivated persistence. I embraced adversity. I acted decisively. I persisted. I believed. And my belief converted into reality. I understood that every principle of success must be applied in harmony: desire, faith, persistence, discipline, imagination, accurate thought, concentration, initiative, service, and positive mental attitude. They form a cohesive system. I applied them together. I acted consistently. I persisted. I reinforced faith. I cultivated discipline. I mastered thought. And I attained extraordinary achievement. I have observed that every great fortune begins as a thought. The starting point of all achievement is desire. Faith, backed by persistence, converts thought into action. Action, repeated daily, produces results. The individual who applies these principles consistently accumulates power, influence, wealth, and mastery. I have applied them. I have lived them. I have persisted. I have acted. And I have achieved. I have always known that success is within the reach of every man who develops definiteness of purpose, a burning desire, faith, persistence, self-discipline, and a positive mental attitude. I cultivated these daily. I acted consistently. I visualized. I persisted. I mastered thought. And I converted desire into reality. I observed that the universe responds to persistent faith and purposeful action. I have realized that the man who understands the laws of success and applies them with courage, persistence, and faith accumulates power, influence, and achievement. I have applied these principles. I have studied them. I have lived them. I have acted upon them. I have persisted in spite of fear, doubt, and temporary defeat, and I have succeeded. I have always believed that success comes to those who understand desire, faith, persistence, self-discipline, accurate thought, initiative, imagination, enthusiasm, and positive mental attitude. I have mastered these. I have applied them daily. I have persisted. I have acted decisively. And I have achieved the results I once only dreamed of. I have proven that whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve.